Have you ever watched a movie and walked away feeling like it was trying to tell you something more than just the story on screen? Something that kind of lingered, maybe even unsettled you?
Definitely.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into Zack Snyder's 2013 film, Man of Steel.
Yeah, and our mission here really is to deconstruct that classic Superman mythos as it's presented in this film.
Okay.
We're going to explore its pretty controversial choices and what they reveal, not just about heroism, but maybe about our own fears, humanity's fears, and the act of filmmaking today.
And to guide us, we've pulled together a really fascinating stack of analytical articles, research that digs into pretty much every facet of this movie.
Right.
From its visual style, which people definitely talk about, to its, philosophical underpinnings. We think you're going to uncover some really compelling aha moments here.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
So let's jump right in. Man of Steel.
Yeah.
It wasn't just another superhero origin story, was it?
Not at all.
From the get-go, it seemed determined to set itself apart from what came before, especially when you compare it to, say, its main competitor back then, the MCU.
It absolutely was. I mean, the film deliberately positioned itself as a kind of post-911 first contact story.
Okay, post-911 first contact.
Yeah, it consciously traded that bright optimism you saw in, the older Superman films for something much more somber, an exploration of fear, cynicism. And what really hits you is the direct, almost unsettling visual references to 9/11 news footage in the climax.
Oh, yeah. The destruction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Collapsing skyscrapers, those dust-choked streets, terrified survivors. That wasn't accidental. It felt like a clear declaration of intent.
Right.
It forces you, the audience, to view Superman's immense power with, apprehension. It makes you ask, how could a being who can level cities, how could he ever be seen as just a pure savior?
That really sets the stage. But, what differentiates it so much, especially from the MCU, is how it presented Superman himself. You had Marvel over there, busy humanizing its gods, right?
Right.
Making Thor and Loki relatable with wit, comedy.
Yeah, lots of banter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Man of Steel gives us this glum hunk, as one article put it.
Yeah.
An alienated god in this relentlessly bleak, muted, steel gray world. It's such a stark contrast to the comics and to what Marvel was doing. So what was behind that choice? That very conscious, polarizing choice for gravitas over levity.
You had Christopher Nolan as producer. He brought his preference for grounded realism, complex stories. Though, interestingly, our sources say he reportedly pushed back against the darkest conclusion, Superman killing Zod.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Then David S. Goyer, the writer, he built that core idea. How would humanity really react to an alien? And he layered in a lot of very overt Christian symbolism.
Very heavy-handed, some might say.
Some did, yeah. And he got criticism for maybe focusing more on plot mechanics than, deep character work.
Ultimately, the film's soul that really belongs to Zack Snyder.
The director.
The director. He translated these ideas into this hyper-stylized, visually driven epic. He frames characters like mythic figures. And it was Snyder who really pushed for that controversial ending.
The Zod kill.
Yeah. It showed his commitment to this deconstructionist vision.
Okay, before we dive deeper into that deconstructionist idea, can you quickly explain what that actually means in film terms?
Sure, yeah. So deconstruction in film. It's basically taking something familiar, like a classic story or a hero like Superman, and sort of taking it apart.
Okay, dismantling it.
Right. You question the basic assumptions, the tropes we all just accept, and you explore them from a new angle, more cynical or realistic.
Got it.
It often means stripping away the idealized parts to show something, grittier, more complicated, less black and white.
That makes perfect sense for Man of Steel. So after all this setup, how did Superman actually get introduced to the world? Because it wasn't the usual, cape flying, saving the day entrance, was it? Not even close.
The film's structure almost felt like it was designed to sabotage him, in a way.
Precisely. It completely subverts the traditional lore. Clark Kent isn't Superman yet. He's a wanderer, a ghost hiding his powers.
Right.
And the world's first formal introduction to him, it's not him saving someone, it's him being the target of this terrifying global ultimatum from General Zod.
Surrender him.
Exactly. You are harboring one of our citizens. Surrender him. So immediately, Superman is framed as part of the threat, not the solution.
Wow. Yeah.
Humanity's first contact is tied to an invasion because of him. So naturally, the military is suspicious. The public has this uneasy perception. It's the logical outcome of a story that just denies its hero the chance to make his own first impression.
His story gets told for him. Violently.
Violently told for him, yes.
You know, beyond that global reaction, our deep dive really points to how Clark's own identity is forged in this intense crucible between two really different father figures, Kryptonian nature versus human nurture.
Absolutely. That's central. The film opens on Krypton, and it's shown as this monument to failed determinism, right?
Determinism, meaning everything's predetermined.
Yeah, a society that practiced eugenics. They genetically engineered everyone for specific roles, no choice. And Jor-El, his father, believed that led to Krypton's doom.
So his rebellion.
It was having a natural birth, Kal-El, a miracle in their society, an act of rebellion. He sent his son to Earth not just to survive, but to be a living symbol of free will.
Wow.
Carrying the genetic codex, basically the blueprint for his entire race, but meant to choose his path. Jor-El's vision was almost messianic, be a guide, an ideal to strive towards.
But then he gets to Earth, and the message from his human father is radically different.
Oh, completely.
The film really reinterprets Jonathan Kent. He's not that unwavering moral compass we often see. He seems governed by fear here. That's a big shift, isn't it?
It's a huge departure. And Jonathan Kent's philosophy in this movie is all about self-preservation, this deep-seated terror of what happens if the world finds out. The bus scene is key. Young Clark asks, should I have let them die? Meaning the kids on the bus he saved.
Right.
And Jonathan's hesitant reply is, maybe.
Oof. That's rough.
It is. And that philosophy culminates in his death, right? He sacrifices himself in that tornado, actively forbidding Clark from saving him.
Yeah.
Which burdens Clark with guilt, obviously, but also reinforces that lesson. Your true self, your power, it's too dangerous. Hide it.
I remember watching that scene and just thinking, wait, that's Jonathan Kent. It really threw me.
It threw a lot of people. It's a deliberate, radical reinterpretation.
And this internal conflict, this nature versus nurture, this push and pull, it gets externalized so powerfully in General Zod. He's not just a mustache-twirling villain. He really works as a perfect mirror to Clark, doesn't he?
He really does. You can see Zod as a tragic hero, in a way. He's the logical conclusion of that Kryptonian philosophy Jor-El rejected.
Engineered for a purpose.
Exactly. Bred, genetically engineered for one single purpose. Protect Krypton, no matter the cost. It's a mandate baked into his genes.
So his horrible actions.
From his perspective, they're driven by duty, a noble duty, he thinks. He just cannot comprehend Clark's choice, his allegiance to humanity. He sees Clark's morality, which comes from his human nurture, as weakness, a betrayal of his Kryptonian nature. And when his purpose, restoring Krypton, is thwarted, he's left with nothing, just revenge. He's incapable of forging a new identity outside that original programming.
And the sources we looked at really hammered home those specific comparison points.
Yeah.
Made that mirror effect super clear.
Yeah.
Like origin, natural birth versus engineered, morality, humanistic upbringing versus Kryptonian duty, how they see power, burden to hide versus tool for a goal.
Big differences.
Core motivation, protect adopted home versus restore lost home, and even response to conflict. Clark's always reluctant, tries to de-escalate, while Zod is just unflinching force.
It sets them up as perfect foils. And then layered onto Clark's journey, you have that really overt Christ figure symbolism.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere.
He's 33, sent from the heavens by his father, seeks counsel in a church before surrendering.
The stained glass window shot.
Exactly, framed like Jesus in Gethsemane. But here's the twist, or maybe the irony.
Okay.
Despite the film seeming to champion Jor-El's ideal of free will through Clark, the plot is almost entirely driven by the deterministic ideas of both fathers. Clark is curiously reactive through most of the film. He wanders because Jonathan told him to hide. He becomes Superman because Jor-El's ghost says it's destiny, and because Zod's invasion forces his hand.
He rarely chooses proactively.
Exactly. He rarely makes a big, proactive choice that isn't a direct response to an external command or threat. So the nurture from Jonathan, the fear, and the nature from Jor-El, the destiny, they both kind of function like programming.
So his struggle for real agency
becomes the film's deepest, maybe even unintentional tragedy. He's caught between two sets of instructions.
Wow, that's a fascinating read on it. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The film's look and feel, that controversial aesthetic, it's not just style, is it? It feels like a deliberate cinematic language, part of that deconstruction. Let's talk about the grammar of violence, as some called it, that Snyder uses to kind of dismantle the traditional, maybe sanitized superhero myth.
Yeah, Snyder's visual signature starts with that color palette, that incredibly muted, desaturated steel gray look.
Instantly recognizable.
Totally. And the intention was clearly to reflect the film's dour themes, its gritty realism. The argument was, a more serious Superman needs a less comic booky world.
But that caused a huge divide.
Massive. Critics, fans, many argued it just undermined the character's core essence as a symbol of hope. People wanted the bright colors.
I remember those fan-made colorized trailers getting really popular.
Exactly. That suggested a widespread desire for a hero who, as one writer put it, should fly in blue skies, not gray ones.
That's a strong statement. But was it universally panned for that choice? Did the sources see any merit in the gravitas argument?
Oh, it wasn't universally panned, but the criticism was significant. Many articles we looked at highlighted how that deliberate desaturation created a kind of emotional distance. Critics argued it stripped away some of the joy, the wonder you traditionally associate with Superman. Made it harder for audiences, maybe, to connect with him as that purely aspirational figure. It felt like prioritizing a bleak aesthetic over the character's inherent hopefulness, for some.
And beyond the color, the film uses some really specific camera techniques too, right?
Yeah.
To create that sense of raw urgency, almost like you're struggling to keep up with the action.
Exactly right. To boost that gritty realism, Snyder uses techniques you normally see in documentaries.
Like the shaky cam.
Yeah, that wobbly handheld camera feel, even in quiet dialogue scenes sometimes. It creates this sense of raw authenticity. And then in the action scenes, you get those frequent snap zooms.
Right, the quick zoom in and out.
Yeah, rapid zooms that create this chaotic urgency, like the camera operator themselves is jerking with the impact, struggling to keep focus. It feels on the fly, even though it's all meticulously planned, of course. And he mixes that with his other signature, operatic action, using slow motion, speed ramping.
We go slow, then fast, then slow again.
Exactly. Shifting between slow-mo and real-time to really emphasize the impact.
Yeah.
Letting you absorb every detail of a punch or a crash without just resorting to rapid-fire cuts.
And all of this builds to that final act, the Battle of Metropolis.
Yeah.
Which is just apocalyptic. It feels like an exercise in showing collateral damage like never before.
It's absolutely an unflinching exercise in showing the catastrophic reality of a fight between gods. The scale of the destruction, estimated in billions, the implied death toll that the sequel, Batman v Superman, later confirms.
Yeah, BVS leans into that hard.
It does. And this was a direct rebuke, really, to the often sanitized, consequence-free destruction you saw in other blockbusters at the time.
Something that really jumped out from the sources was this idea of cinematic alienation. How Snyder's style creates that. How does that work exactly?
It's about combining the unreal with the hyperreal. So, the unreal is the desaturated colors, the mythic framing of characters. The hyperreal is the shaky cam, the visceral documentary-style destruction. Put them together, and you get a world that feels simultaneously awesome, in the old sense of the word, and terrifying.
Unlike, say, the Christopher Reeve films.
Exactly. Traditional superhero cinematography, like in the Reeve films, it invites you in. Identification, wonder, usually helped by a big, triumphant score. Snyder's techniques often do the opposite. The muted colors create emotional distance. The documentary-style camera makes you feel like a terrified bystander watching a disaster unfold, not like you're participating in a heroic ballet.
And the lack of cutaways.
Crucially, yeah. By refusing to constantly cut away to shots of Superman actively saving civilians during the big fight, the film frames him more as a participant in the cataclysm. You're not really invited to feel what he feels. You're almost forced to feel the world's fear of him. So the aesthetic isn't just realism for realism's sake. It's reinforcing that core theme of xenophobia, a fear of the other. It makes the audience complicit in the anxieties the film wants to explore.
Okay, now we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
The moment. The one everyone remembers. The one that sparked just a firestorm of debate that still goes on.
Yeah.
Superman killing General Zod.
Yeah. The next snap. It's where the film's whole deconstructionist project really reaches its absolute peak. It's the unforgivable choice, as some analysis called it.
Unforgivable. Strong word.
Well, the screenplay deliberately engineers a situation with basically no clean exit, right? Zod has lost everything. His purpose is gone. He's threatening to incinerate this trapped family with his heat vision.
Cornering Superman.
Cornering him completely. Forcing a binary choice. Kill Zod or let the family die. And Superman responds by snapping Zod's neck, followed by that just visceral, primal scream of anguish. The intention, clearly, was for this to be a foundational trauma. The bloody origin story for Superman's famous no-kill rule, learned not through some abstract principle, but through devastating first-hand experience.
But man, did that decision ignite a firestorm. It divided fans, obviously, but also the comic book creators themselves, people who'd written Superman for decades.
Right.
What were the main arguments on both sides?
It really split the creative community. On one side, you had defenders, writers like Dan Jurgens, Bruce Timm. They argued it was a justifiable last resort, that they'd even considered similar impossible scenarios in their own Superman stories.
Okay.
Joey Esposito, another commentator, saw it as this powerful statement of Superman choosing Earth definitively over Krypton, his adopted home over his heritage.
And the other side, the opposition?
They were vehement. Creators like Mark Waid, Chuck Dixon, they argued it fundamentally violates the character's core tenet, which is Superman always finds another way. That's what makes him Superman.
Right. He doesn't take the easy or even the necessary violent way out.
Exactly. Neil Adams, famously and kind of bluntly suggested an alternative. Can't put his hand over his eyes, just cover Zod's eyes to stop the heat vision.
A simpler solution, perhaps.
Perhaps. It highlighted the feeling for some that the film forced the choice too hard, maybe unnecessarily.
And beyond the act itself, one key criticism that came up in the sources was the narrative fallout, or lack thereof. How the story just cuts away from Clark's anguish pretty quickly.
That tonal whiplash is really jarring, isn't it?
It really is.
You go from Clark screaming in agony after killing the last member of his race to this lighthearted, almost jokey beat with a general about property damage.
Yeah, the drone scene.
Right. And then boom, he's starting his new job at the Daily Planet. Banter with Lois. It feels like the film fails to give proper weight to the absolutely cataclysmic thing that just happened.
Right.
It makes that huge moral compromise feel maybe unearned, or at least disconnected from his internal conflict we'd seen earlier. It's like the film itself couldn't quite process the gravity of its own climax.
So this whole controversy, it's not just about one plot point, is it? It feels like it's about a fundamental clash between two really big ideas about what heroism even is.
That's exactly what it boiled down to. It articulates this clash between what we can call the aspirational ideal and the consequentialist reality.
Okay, break that down. Aspirational versus consequentialist.
Right. Traditional Superman, the one many grew up with, represents an aspirational moral absolute. He doesn't kill because it's fundamentally wrong. His heroism is defined by his ability to find another way to transcend those impossible situations. That's the ideal.
The ideal we strive for.
Exactly. Man of Steel, however, presents a consequentialist hero. His morality is forged by brutal reality, by consequences.
So he weighs the outcomes.
Precisely. He kills Zod because the consequence of not killing him, the immediate death of that family, is judged to be worse. For a consequentialist, the ends, however tragic, can justify the means.
And the backlash.
The backlash comes from a deep-seated belief, a preference maybe, for that aspirational model. For many fans, Superman's value lies in his power to rise above those impossible choices, not be broken by them.
So Snyder and Goyer's decision.
It's a direct challenge to that ideal. They're basically arguing that in a truly realistic world, even a Superman would be forced into a no-win scenario. The next snap is the film's most potent, most divisive moment because it forces the audience, you, to pick a side in this philosophical debate about heroism itself.
And the film's split reception is just a mirror of the audience's split verdict on that question.
Perfectly put. The division is the verdict.
So wrapping things up, what's the lasting impact of Man of Steel? I mean, it did launch a cinematic universe, the DCEU, but it feels like it did so, as one source put it, an unstable foundation of controversy and that tonal dissonance we talked about.
It absolutely did. The film's dark tone, its deconstructionist themes, they became the cinematic DNA for everything that followed immediately after, especially Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Right.
The franchise didn't shy away from the controversies of Man of Steel. It made them the central plot drivers of the sequel. Bruce Wayne's whole crusade against Superman stems directly from him witnessing the Metropolis destruction firsthand.
Right, he was there in the dust.
Yeah. And the world's fear of this unchecked god becomes the main conflict. So by doubling down, they kind of locked the whole franchise into this reactive, almost defensive posture right from the start.
And years later, Man of Steel is still so polarizing. People either seem to love it passionately or really dislike it. It gets called the greatest solo Superman movie by some, and a film that did irreversible damage to Superman's image by others. That's quite a split.
That division is its legacy, really. And you could argue the eventual kind of messy dissolution of that DCEU and its current soft reboot into James Gunn's new DC universe. That's the final verdict on this whole approach.
How so?
Well, the upcoming Superman film, Gunn's film, is being explicitly positioned as a tonal correction. A return to a brighter, more hopeful hero, one who embraces his comic book roots more readily. That move in itself is a powerful commentary on the legacy of Man of Steel. It's a deliberate swing back in the other direction.
So ultimately, maybe Man of Steel was this grand experiment in cinematic deconstruction that perhaps didn't fully land for the mainstream.
That's a good way to put it. And something the sources really emphasize is that deconstruction, as an artistic project, it is intellectually stimulating.
Right, it makes you think.
It takes apart something familiar, exposes its underlying assumptions. Man of Steel questioned the assumption of inherent goodness, of moral purity in its hero, of consequence-free action in its world.
Which explains the passionate cult following.
Exactly. People who appreciate its ambition, its philosophical weight, its boldness, however. The mass audience appeal of a character like Superman seems rooted less in complexity and more in his simplicity as an aspirational symbol. It's more of an emotional connection maybe than an intellectual one for many people.
So the market corrected itself.
You could see the new DCU, this return to hopefulness, as a kind of market correction, a tacit admission, perhaps, that the purely deconstructionist approach, while artistically valid, wasn't commercially sustainable for a character who, for millions, just embodies hope.
So Man of Steel asked, what is Superman in a world without simple truths?
And it discovered that for a lot of the audience, the answer was kind of, well, we'd actually still prefer the simple truth, thank you very much.
Yeah.
The film's enduring, divisive legacy might be that lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing a myth can do is just exist, unbroken.
And it raises an important question for you, our listener. In your own life, when do you find yourself drawn more to the aspirational ideal versus the consequentialist reality? What kind of heroes do you think we need in today's world?